Awake, April 8th, 1990.
Young people ask, am I ready to get baptized?
Dear Watchtower Society, my name is Sharon, and I'm 13 years old. I've been wondering if I'm ready for baptism. I think I am, but I'm still not sure. I'm sure this is also on the minds of other young Christians. Could you please write an article to help set me straight?
Sharon is right. Baptism is indeed on the minds of many God-fearing youths. Among Jehovah's Witnesses, youths recognize that they must make their own decision to serve God, that their parents cannot make the decision for them. They also appreciate that Jesus Christ commanded his followers to symbolize their dedication to God by water baptism. To make public declaration as a dedicated servant of God is a great responsibility. Certainly you would not want to rush into it simply to please your friends or parents. Furthermore, no one should coerce you into baptism. However, Jesus did advise all, at Luke 14:28, to calculate the expense of being his disciple. This does not mean that you should weigh whether you want to become Christ's disciple or not. Clearly, this is the right thing to do. You should, though, be fully aware of what being a witness of Jehovah involves. Next, you should determine whether you are really ready to take on this responsibility. Am I old enough? As teenagers get older, they often feel that they have a right to enjoy certain privileges and responsibilities. They are quick to insist on driving the family car, to plead for permission to have after-school jobs, to want their own spending money. But when it comes to baptism, many youths excuse themselves as being too young or not ready for that responsibility. A youth named Andre observes, "A lot of youths wait until they are 17 or 18 to get baptized, which is a little old." Why? Because long before that they're old enough to make other decisions for themselves. Yes, the mere fact that you are a teenager is no excuse to limp upon two different opinions, nor is it a valid reason to refrain from taking a stand as a Christian. He exhorts the Bible at Ecclesiastes 12:1, "Remember now your grand Creator in the days of your young manhood." The prophet Samuel was one who began serving Jehovah at a very tender age. The psalmist David, at Psalm 71:5, could likewise say, "You are my hope, O sovereign Lord Jehovah, my confidence from my youth." Similarly, thousands of Christian youths today, including some pre-teenagers, have proved themselves responsible enough to make a dedication to serve God. Granted, some teenagers lack seriousness and are too irresponsible and emotionally immature to make as far-reaching a decision as baptism. But is this really true in your case? Your parents will undoubtedly have much to say in this regard. God hardly expects a teenager to have the maturity of a 40-year-old. He well knows that you are subject to what Paul calls at 2 Timothy 2:22, the desires incidental to youth. But if you are old enough to be reasonably serious and responsible, then you are most likely old enough to consider making a dedication. However, there are other questions you should ask yourself. Have I taken in sufficient knowledge? The book The Adolescent by F. Philip Rice observes that a shallow, naive concept of religion will not often stand up under attack and trial. Yet, Mr. Rice notes, there are some indications that today's youths are woefully uninformed. A study of the biblical knowledge of Protestant and Jewish university sophomore students revealed real ignorance of the Old and New Testaments. This should not be true of one getting baptized. One must first take in knowledge in order to be a disciple or taught one. So would it not be reasonable to expect that before getting baptized, you know at least what is mentioned in Hebrews 5:12, the elementary things of the sacred pronouncements of God? That would include knowing what the Bible teaches on such matters as the soul, the condition of the dead, the sanctification of God's name, the kingdom, and the ransom. True, you are bound to know something about the Bible simply by virtue of having accompanied your parents to Christian meetings. But knowledge gained that way may be superficial and is not likely to stand up under attack and trial. You must be able to give others what 1 Peter 3:15 terms a reason for the hope in you. Terry says that she believed the Bible's truths, yet she confesses, "I had never satisfied myself by asking my own questions and then answering them. Recently, I began to do this. The result of such a program of Bible study? My faith is increasing, and I now find I'm able to talk to people with real conviction. I tell all witness youths not to be afraid to ask themselves if this is the truth. Find out, research, study, make sure of all things. Then you'll be able to dedicate yourself wholeheartedly to Jehovah." Doers of the Word. We must, however, be as James 1:22 recommends, doers of the Word, and not hearers only. You cannot present yourself for baptism and be one who hides what he is by concealing serious wrongs. Such wrongs would include sexual immorality, drunkenness, drug abuse, or any of the sins mentioned at 1 Corinthians 6, 9, and 10. If you have had problems along these lines, why not arrange with your parents to talk with some Christian elders? Be assured that kindly assistance will be given you. It may also be that some changes are needed in the way you treat your parents, or view counsel coming from Christian elders, even in the way you choose friends. It may not be easy to make such changes, but Proverbs 11:19 reminds us, "The one firmly standing for righteousness is in line for life, but the one chasing after what is bad is in line for his own death." Does Jehovah require that you be perfect? Not at all. Proverbs 20:9 asks, "Who can say, 'I have cleansed my heart. I have become pure from my sin'?" Being imperfect, we are still prone to make mistakes. But because of Christ's ransom, we can remain in good standing with God. For example, a youth putting up a hard fight against a bad habit, such as the unclean practice of masturbation, need not feel that he or she is necessarily disqualified for baptism. Indeed, by strenuously resisting unrighteousness, one can make Jehovah's heart rejoice. Have I made God my friend? Perhaps the most critical question, though, involves your relationship with God. Remember, you dedicate yourself not to a work or to a cause or even to an organization, but to God himself. Does God seem abstract, distant? Or have you come to know and love him as a person? If so, you will find yourself talking to him often, not mechanically, but from the heart. You will also find yourself virtually compelled to speak to others about God. Says Proverbs 15:7, "The lips of the wise ones keep scattering knowledge about." Are you doing so by regularly preaching to others? Or are you allowing recreation, entertainment, or even laziness to hold you back from helping others come to know God? Yes, for baptism to be meaningful, God must be your closest friend. If this is not the case now, the fault is not God's, for he warmly invites all to seek him. And by persisting in personal study, prayer, and association with his people, you will in time come to feel closer to God. Baptism will be the natural result of such a drawing close to God. Consider, for example, a young girl named Cindy. She writes, "At the age of 14, I was baptized. I know how it is to be reluctant about doing so. But I want to say that it is the most wonderful thing you could do. Imagine, knowing that Jehovah has approved of you and that he will never leave you nor forsake you. If anyone was to ask me if he should dedicate himself to Jehovah, I would say yes. But don't do it to please someone else. Do it because you want to."
End of article.